She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She just looked the guard dead in the eye and said, "I'm not moving." And when four military veterans stood up behind her without saying a word, the whole crowd knew they had picked the wrong mother to challenge. Hi, everyone. Today we're stepping into a story about dignity, grit, and the quiet kind of courage that often gets overlooked until it's tested. Imagine working 12 straight hours under the sun, your boots still coated in dust, your uniform clinging to you with the weight of exhaustion and racing against time just to show up for someone you love, only to be told you don't belong, that you're somehow out of place. This could happen to anyone, even you. So before we dive into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Let's begin. Master Sergeant Raina Cole didn't remember the last time she sat down that day. Not really. Sure, she'd leaned against a wall during the mid-morning briefing at Miramar. She might have crouched for a second near the weapons trailer during the last-minute inspection that threw the whole base into controlled chaos. But her knees hadn't touched a chair, not since 0400. The sun had cooked the range in a slow, relentless sizzle. She'd reapplied sunscreen with fish scale extract, whatever was in the base issue stuff twice. And now as she yanked off her gloves and tossed them into the locker, the clock above the door glared back at her 2:38 p.m. Tiana's graduation started at 3:30 sharp. Her hands moved on their own. Grab keys, check the printed invite, pocket the ID. She slung on her windbreaker desert tan and soft from use, barely glancing in the mirror. There was no time. She could have changed. Technically, the spare jeans and sweatshirt sat folded in her duffel bag, but that would have meant another 10 minutes, maybe 15, and she didn't have it. She'd made a promise. "I'll be there," she told her daughter a week ago. "Even if I have to crawl." The drive across San Diego wasn't forgiving. I-805 had already started bottlenecking just past Balboa. She darted into the exit lane like she'd done in convoy drills, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping the edge of the steering column, knuckles white. Her phone buzzed. A voice text from Mrs. Delgado, her neighbor. "We're inside. They're letting folks in early." "Want me to save you a seat?" Raina hit the voice reply. "Yes, I'm on Harbor Drive now. See you soon." The phone slid back to the passenger seat as she took the corner faster than she should have, but clean. She spotted the school's auditorium up ahead, its banner flapping in the breeze. "Class of 2025, our future starts today." The parking lot was full, overflowing onto the grassy patches near the edge. Raina didn't hesitate. She pulled into a dirt sliver between two trees and shut off the ignition. Her eyes scanned herself. Elbows dusty, boots marked with dry clay. Her name patch Cole, barely legible under the sun-faded thread. She reached up to the mirror, adjusted it slightly, and looked herself in the eyes. "This is fine," she muttered. "You're her mom. That's what matters." She stepped out, pulling the windbreaker tighter, and made her way through the crowd. Families gathered in groups, men in polos, women in dresses, kids fidgeting with tassels and programs. A few people looked up as she passed, some with polite nods, others with lingering stares. Raina walked tall even though her shoulders ached. Mrs. Delgado waved her over from a cluster of folding chairs near the back. Raina eased into the empty seat beside her and exhaled. Her thighs throbbed against the cool metal. "You made it," the older woman whispered, touching her arm. Raina nodded. Wouldn't miss it. In the distance, the band was tuning up off-key flutes, rattling drums. The principal adjusted the microphone stand. Parents flipped through the printed program. Names rose, order of events. Raina scanned the side of the building near the gym where the students were lining up. And there she was, Tiana, tall, poised, standing in her cap and gown, with her hands folded behind her back. Raina smiled, her chest tightening. All those years of solo practices, late-night study sessions, scholarships applied for in the dark, and now this. But before she could lift a hand to wave, two shadows moved across her lap. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us." Raina turned. Two security guards stood over her, navy polos with the school's crest stitched on the chest. One older, graying jaw, tight arms crossed. The other younger, fidgety, maybe barely 22. "Excuse me," she asked calmly. "This area is for guests of graduates only," the older man said. "We've had some reports. Possible disruption." Raina blinked, measured. I'm Master Sergeant Raina Cole. My daughter's graduating today. Do you have a ticket? She reached into her windbreaker and handed him the folded, slightly crumpled printout. And an ID out came her wallet. She passed him the military-issued ID without a word. The older guard held it too long. His eyes scanned from the card to her uniform as if trying to match the two. We'll need to verify with administration. Raina's jaw tightened slightly. She used the voice she reserved for early recruits. I just left base. I'm here for my daughter. I'm not moving. The younger one shifted his weight. The older man didn't flinch. We're asking nicely. A few rows nearby had quieted. People were starting to notice. I've done nothing wrong, Raina said evenly. Call who you need, but I'm staying. Neither guard moved, and neither did she. Then came another voice. Calm, steady, carried without effort. She said she's not moving. The older guard turned halfway annoyed, then stopped. Behind him a man stood, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, sunglasses tucked into his collar. Senior Chief Marcus Reed. 3 others stood up beside him. 1 black, 1 Latino, 1 Pacific Islander. None looked angry, just present, solid. Reed stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Do you know who this woman is? She says she's a parent. She is a parent. Reed cut in. And she's a master sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. That means she's got more service in one toe than most people bring in a lifetime. You're looking at her boots like they're dirty. Those boots stand between you and what keeps this country safe. The older guard faltered. The younger one suddenly found interest in the grass. Raina didn't speak. Didn't need to. The quiet around her said enough. The student body hadn't walked yet, but already someone had stood their ground. The older guard's face didn't quite know where to land, caught between embarrassment and ego. For a second, it looked like he might double down, puff his chest, say something about doing his job. But then he looked around. 3 rows back, a dad with a camera had paused mid-frame. A teenage girl in a hoodie was filming on her phone, not even pretending to be discreet. The whispers had rippled outward like a drop stone, quiet at first, then sharper. Raina could feel it, that sudden shift in atmosphere. The guards had come looking for control. Instead, they'd found an audience. Reed's voice didn't rise, but it filled the space like gravel on concrete. You didn't ask for her name. You didn't ask who she was here for. You saw the uniform and made an assumption. He looked down at Raina, nodded once, then turned back to the guards. She earned that seat, probably more than anyone else here. The silence was suffocating. Then from the far side of the field, a school staff member jogged over lanyard, bouncing clipboard in hand. Is there a problem here? He asked, panting slightly. Reed gestured toward Raina without stepping back. No, sir, just a misunderstanding. Ms. Cole is exactly where she belongs. The staff member glanced at the military ID still in the older guard's hand. His eyes went wide. Oh, yes, of course. Sergeant, thank you for your service. Please enjoy the ceremony. He turned sharply toward the guards. We're good here. The guards stepped back like retreating tides. The younger one mumbled something neither Raina nor Reed could make out. The older one said nothing at all. Raina finally exhaled, her chest rising and falling in a quiet rhythm. She stayed seated, adjusted the hem of her windbreaker, and looked forward. But her eyes drifted toward the line of students waiting near the stage. She found her daughter Tiana, her back straight, cap slightly askew. And just then Tiana looked up. Their eyes met across the crowd. It was only a second, but something changed. Tiana's gaze tightened. Her smile faltered. Raina could tell she'd seen, or at least sensed enough to know something wasn't right. She didn't wave. Not yet. She just sat a little taller, tried to project calm the same way she had during field exercises when junior Marines started to panic. The kind of stillness that says, you're safe. I'm okay, we're here. The band launched into a slightly off-key rendition of Pomp and Circumstance. The crowd stood as the first row of graduates began to move. Cheers erupted. Raina clapped along politely, then sat when others did, her hands folded in her lap. Mrs. Delgado leaned close. I'm sorry, honey. That was just plain wrong. Raina smiled faintly. Not your fault. No, but it shouldn't have happened. You just wanted to see your baby walk. Raina gave a small nod. And I will. Tiana's brow moved into position, her tall frame visible even among the caps and gowns. She walked with intention, heels clicking softly against the concrete. Raina's eyes never left her. She remembered the late nights helping with applications, the tears over college rejection letters, the quiet pride when Tiana got the call from the state university full-ride pre-med orientation in August. All of that led to this moment. A name was called, then another, and then Tiana Cole. Her daughter stepped forward, crossing the stage in long, deliberate strides. The principal extended a hand. Flashbulbs popped. Raina stood instinctively, clapping once, twice. But something in Tiana's face told her she was scanning the crowd, looking for something, someone. Their eyes met again. This time Tiana didn't smile. She didn't frown either, but her brow creased. Her walk slowed just a beat. She had seen the guards. She had seen her mother standing, or rather not standing, frozen in the middle of unwanted attention. Raina offered a small wave. Controlled, measured, just enough to say, "It's okay, baby. Keep going." Tiana blinked, then straightened her spine. The rest of her walk looked like muscle memory. She took the diploma, nodded once, and exited the stage without looking back. The ceremony continued, names called out like falling dominoes. Parents cheered, balloons bobbed in the air. The brass section hit a sour note that made 3 toddlers cry. But Raina didn't hear most of it. She was thinking about the look on her daughter's face, about what it meant to be seen, not just as a parent or a guest, but as a problem, about how often that happened quietly in ways too small to be recorded, but loud enough to echo, about how little it took for a uniform to become a target instead of a badge, and about how proud she still was. When the last name was called, the caps flew high. Screams and laughter broke through like confetti. Mrs. Delgado gave her a squeeze on the hand. "You did good," she said. Raina smiled but didn't speak. She was watching the guards again, standing off to the side now near a trash bin, lined with half-deflated balloons and forgotten programs. They looked smaller than before, like their posture didn't quite know where to go. Reed walked back down the row and took his seat beside her. "You okay?" he asked low. Raina nodded. "Yeah, I think so. You didn't flinch. That matters." She looked at him. "I didn't want her to see it, but she did." "She also saw how you handled it," Reed said. Raina didn't answer. She was too busy replaying the moment, how quickly everything shifted, how easily presence alone became a challenge. She hadn't yelled, hadn't raised her hand. She just stayed seated. And yet somehow that made her a disruption. She rubbed her eyes with the back of her hand, let the buzz of the crowd wash over her. Then she stood, stretched her back, and waited for the graduates to come pouring out. They came out in a wave, gowns, fluttering tassels, swinging voices full of adrenaline and relief. Some kids ran straight into hugs. Others scanned the crowd for familiar faces. There were shrieks, camera flashes, and the universal chaos of celebration. Raina stood still, searching. She spotted her daughter cutting through the mass of students like she had somewhere to be, and she did. Tiana moved with purpose. Not smiling, not crying, just focused. Her eyes darted through the sea of caps until they landed on Raina. She didn't break stride, no hesitation, no detour. She reached her mother in a few fast steps and pulled her into a hug that lifted Raina an inch off the ground. "You came," Tiana whispered. "Of course I did," Raina murmured, arms tightening. "Didn't think I'd let you walk that stage alone, did you?" Tiana stepped back slightly enough to look at her. "You look tired," she said, eyes scanning the worn collar, the windbreaker, the smudges on the uniform. "I am tired," Raina said with a light laugh, "but not too tired to clap for my baby." Tiana hesitated. "What happened?" Raina's shoulders dropped a fraction. "Doesn't matter. I saw them talking to you. I heard the guy with the sunglasses. And that kid behind me said someone was filming it." Raina looked away, scanning the field, the cluster of folding chairs now slowly being broken down by staff. "It's over." "They thought you didn't belong," Tiana said, voice low, steady. "Yeah," Raina admitted. "They did. You didn't do anything wrong." "I know, but they came at you like you did." Raina looked at her daughter, this tall, brilliant girl she'd raised while balancing deployments, relocations, 12-hour days, and late-night grocery runs. "That's not new, baby. I've seen it before. I just didn't want you to see it. Not today." Tiana didn't blink. "I'm glad I did." Raina furrowed her brow. "You are, yeah, because now I know exactly what it looks like and what to do when it happens." They stood like that for a few seconds, the buzz of the celebration fading just enough to hear a camera shutter click nearby. Raina turned and caught sight of a teenager holding her phone, nervous but not lowering it. Her father stood behind her, murmuring something she didn't seem to hear. Raina looked back at her daughter. Someone recorded it. Tiana nodded. It's probably online already. I should go ask her to take it down. Tiana touched her mother's elbow. It's already out there. You can't chase it, but it's not on you. Raina sighed heavy. This was your day. I didn't want anything to take that from you. You didn't. You gave it more weight. Just then, Senior Chief Marcus Reed approached with the other three veterans close behind. He extended a hand to Raina, but then pulled her into a quick, one-armed hug. That was solid, he said. You didn't even blink. I didn't know it was going to turn into a show. It didn't, he said. It turned into a statement. Tiana looked at the men. Thank you for standing up. Reed gave a half smile. We just did what we were supposed to do. One of the other vets, a man with deep dimples and a patch on his shoulder, stepped forward and handed Tiana a folded square of fabric. For when someone tries to tell you who you are. Tiana took it carefully. Thank you. Reed turned back to Raina. You good always, she replied. You're going to see it pop up in places, military forums, probably Facebook before dinner. Someone already called you Quiet Force Mom. Raina laughed once, a dry sound. That's a terrible nickname. They mean it with love. I didn't do anything, she said. You stayed seated. Sometimes that's louder than standing up. The assistant principal approached, then a clipboard still tucked under his arm like it was part of his spine. His tie was crooked. His eyes shifted between Raina and the men around her. Hi there, he said, extending a hand. I'm Darren Wilcox, assistant principal here. I just wanted to offer a personal congratulations. Tiana's one of our top students. Incredible work ethic. Raina shook his hand politely. Thank you. I also wanted to address the earlier situation, our security team. Well, they were just trying to be thorough. Protocol, you understand. Raina tilted her head. Protocol. Well, tensions are high these days. We have to be vigilant. Vigilant against who, she asked calmly. Wilcox opened his mouth, then closed it. We apologize if it was handled poorly. Tiana folded her arms. I'm sorry you felt uncomfortable, Wilcox added. That word felt landed wrong. Raina stepped closer, her voice cool but sharp. I didn't feel uncomfortable. I felt disrespected. There's a difference. Wilcox adjusted his tie. Of course, if I showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, no one would have looked twice. But in uniform, suddenly I'm suspicious. The words hung in the air. Behind Wilcox, the two guards stood frozen near the edge of the lot. The younger one fiddled with his radio. The older one stared at a tree like it might bail him out. Reed stepped forward. Sir, he said, you're still talking. Wilcox blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. This isn't about checking IDs. This is about the assumptions you let walk around in a polo with your school's logo on it. Wilcox hesitated. I wasn't trying to. Then don't try, Raina said. Just fix it. The group stood there in the heat of the late afternoon, a breeze pushing leftover balloons along the pavement. A few more parents wandered by, casting glances. One woman mouthed thank you to Raina as she passed. A man gave a subtle thumbs up. Wilcox finally nodded. You're right. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. I hope you mean that, Raina said. He turned and walked away. The veterans gave Raina nods one by one and headed off in different directions, blending back into the crowd. Reed lingered for a second longer. If you ever want that chair reserved, just say the word. We'll be early next time. Raina chuckled. I appreciate you. Reed smiled, then walked away. Tiana stood quiet beside her mother. You going to talk to the guards? Raina looked toward them. I'm thinking about it. You don't have to. I know, but she took a step anyway. Raina moved toward them with a slow, deliberate pace. Each step was heavy but firm. The crowd behind her had thinned, most families heading toward the parking lot or toward the school's courtyard for photos. But the two guards still stood near the row of empty chairs and a deflated balloon tangled in a folding table leg. The older one shifted his weight as she approached. The younger one glanced at his shoes. Ma'am, the older one started, his voice stiff. I wanted to say I don't need a speech, Raina cut in, steady as ever. He swallowed hard, nodded. I didn't know. I didn't look hard enough. You didn't listen hard enough either. The younger guard stepped forward, eyes flickering with guilt. I followed his lead. I didn't stop to ask why we were even questioning you. I'm sorry. Raina looked at both of them holding eye contact just long enough to make sure it landed. I'm not the one you need to explain it to. But next time, stop following. Start thinking. Neither man replied. They just nodded. Raina gave a small nod back and turned away. Tiana waited by the truck, still holding the folded patch in her hand. When Raina reached her, she opened the passenger door and climbed in. Raina joined her, settling into the driver's seat with a long exhale. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Tiana said, "They looked scared." "They should be," Raina replied, starting the ignition. The engine sputtered, then caught with a tired hum. "Not because I'm dangerous, but because they don't know how to handle someone who doesn't fit their picture." They pulled out of the makeshift parking spot and joined the slow flow of graduation traffic. Streamers clung to car antennas. Kids leaned out of windows holding diplomas. Horns honked. It was chaotic, but familiar. Raina's phone buzzed in the center console. Unknown number. She tapped the screen and read the message aloud. "Ma'am, are you available for an interview regarding today's incident? Local news outlet." Tiana peeked at the screen. "You gonna answer?" Raina's thumb hovered over the phone. She didn't respond right away. The car filled with the soft hum of the AC and the distant beat of someone's graduation playlist blaring from a minivan 3 cars up. Finally, she tossed the phone back into the console. "Not today." "Why not?" "Because what mattered already happened," she said. "You walked that stage. I stayed in my seat. That's the story." Tiana looked out the window, arms crossed. "You think they'll post the video anyway?" "Probably, and people will talk." "Of course they will. They'll argue in the comments, take sides, say things they'd never say in person." Raina chuckled. "You sound like your Uncle Darius." Tiana smiled. Maybe he was right about some things. They stopped at a red light. Raina glanced into the rearview mirror. Behind them, a father was crouching on the sidewalk to take a photo of his daughter, holding a glitter-covered mortarboard. The girl giggled, face flushed with pride. Balloons danced beside her in the breeze. "You mad it got messy?" Tiana asked softly. "No," Raina said. "Not messy, just real." Tiana was quiet. "This is the world we live in." Raina continued. "And that means sometimes it's going to push back when we show up in places it didn't expect us to be. But that doesn't mean we back down." The light turned green. Raina eased into the gas. "You know," she said, "people think standing up is about making noise. But sometimes it's about staying put, not budging, even when everything around you says, move." Tiana nodded. "I saw that." "Good." They turned into a gas station just off the highway. Raina stepped out and started pumping. Across the lot, a young couple stood by their car mid-argument. The woman wasn't shouting, but her posture said she wasn't folding. The man gestured wildly, clearly frustrated. But the woman stood her ground. Raina didn't know what they were arguing about, but she recognized the shape of it. Someone pushing, someone refusing. Back in the car, Tiana had her phone out. "Ma," she said, "you ever think about talking about stuff like this? Like, to a reporter?" "No, I mean like, on base, at the support group. Or even just to people who've gone through it and don't know how to say it out loud." Raina stared ahead for a moment, thoughtful. "You think anyone would want to hear it?" Tiana turned to her, voice full of quiet certainty. "I think people need to." Raina didn't answer right away. She reached for her phone, opened a new note, typed slowly, deliberately, "Hold your ground." Not out of anger, out of love for your kids, for your story, for the space you already earned. She hit save. Tiana smiled like she knew exactly what her mother had written. What Raina asked, amused. "Nothing," Tiana said. "Just glad you're my mom." Raina smirked. "Me too, baby." They pulled back onto the road. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows over the hood of the truck. The ceremony was behind them, the video already spinning through the internet, the moment already out in the world. But the story. The story was still unfolding, one road, one seat, one hard-earned truth at a time. The road ahead was open now. The traffic had thinned. Graduation crowds had either settled into early dinners or packed up streamers and gone home. Raina drove with one hand lightly resting on the bottom of the wheel, the other occasionally brushing the dashboard out of habit, the way tired people sometimes try to ground themselves. Tiana sat next to her in the passenger seat, still holding that folded fabric patch in her hand, the one given to her by the veteran who said, "For when someone tries to tell you who you are." She hadn't let go of it since. For a while, neither of them spoke. It wasn't an awkward silence. It was the kind that follows something big, something that leaves an imprint, the kind of silence you settle into because you're still absorbing the meaning of what just happened. Then Tiana said, "You ever wish you hadn't stood your ground? Just let it go and moved." Raina kept her eyes on the road. "No," she said, "because if I don't stand up for me, who teaches you how to stand up for you?" Tiana turned toward the window again, watching the fields blur past. "It's weird. This morning I was worried my gown wouldn't zip, that I'd trip on the steps, or that my name would get mispronounced. And then instead I ended up watching my mom make grown men rethink everything they thought they knew about power." Raina laughed under her breath. "I didn't make anyone rethink anything. I just refused to be moved." "Exactly," Tiana said. "That's what power really is, isn't it?" Raina nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's not always about pushing. Sometimes it's about holding." They exited the freeway near home, passing a small corner store with a faded flag in the window. A man outside tipped his hat to them as they drove by. Raina noticed he had a veteran bumper sticker on his truck. She gave a small nod in return. As they turned into their neighborhood, Tiana suddenly said, "You think they'll call you again? The reporters? Maybe. You going to answer this time?" Raina was quiet for a second, then said, "If I do, it won't be to talk about the guards, or the stairs, or the principal." "What would it be for then?" Raina glanced at her daughter. "To tell someone else that they don't have to explain their presence, that they belong in the seat they earned even if someone else thinks they don't look the part." Tiana smiled just a little. "Yeah, that sounds better than the news clip." They pulled into the driveway. The sun had dipped just enough to give the sky that soft peach hue that only lasted a few minutes before dusk. Raina shut off the engine. The silence was thick now, the kind that came with closure. She turned in her seat. "You proud of yourself?" Tiana looked surprised. "Me? Yeah. You walked that stage. You stood tall, even after everything." "I'm proud of you," Tiana said. "More than I knew how to say earlier." Raina reached over, gently squeezed her daughter's hand. "You saw it all today. The disrespect, the defense, the apology that didn't feel like one. That's the world sometimes. But you also saw what it means to stay still in the face of it. That's what I want you to remember. I will." They stepped out of the truck and into the warm evening air. Crickets had already begun their slow chatter. The street was quiet, almost too quiet after the noise of the ceremony. Across the street, a neighbor stepped out to get his mail and gave them a wave. "Heard about what happened," he called. "You did right." Raina just nodded. She didn't need fanfare, didn't want a spotlight, but the story had legs of its own. As she and Tiana walked up the steps to their front door, her phone buzzed again. Another message. This one not from media. It was from an old friend on base. "Just saw the video. Quiet Force Mom. They're already sharing it at the NCO lounge. Proud of you." Raina smiled to herself and tucked the phone away. Inside the house, the silence was different. Safe. Familiar. Tiana set the patch on the kitchen counter and turned toward her mother. "So, what now?" Raina thought about it for a moment, then said, "Now we eat, we rest, and tomorrow we keep showing up." And as the night settled around them, that's exactly what they did. Sometimes the most powerful stand you'll ever take is simply refusing to be moved. Not because you want to make a scene, not because you need to prove something, but because you know who you are and where you belong. Master Sergeant Raina Cole didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She didn't raise her voice. What she did was stay seated, and in doing so, she taught her daughter and everyone watching that dignity doesn't require permission. How many times have we been told in subtle or loud ways that we didn't fit, that we weren't expected to be here in this room, at this event, in this seat? Maybe it wasn't about a uniform. Maybe it was about your age, your clothes, your accent, your income, your skin, your silence. But when we hold our ground, not out of anger, but out of love for what we've earned and who we love, we make space, not just for ourselves, but for the ones who come next. So if this story reminded you of a moment when you had to claim your place, I want to hear it. Tell us in the comments, because your story matters too. And if you ever find yourself watching someone else being told to move when they shouldn't, be the one who stands up. Not loud, not flashy, just steady. Like Senior Chief Reed, like those veterans, like Tiana, like Raina.